Okay, first of all, I forgot to congratulate all of you guys. That's very American, by the way, to congratulate. But the fact that you guys made it here for me is a huge deal. Because we always see that there's always something very weird or strange that comes up that prevents people from making it to spiritual exercises. This is a danger zone here. Because what's at stake is your eternal soul, and there could be a before and after moment, and the principalities, dominions, thrones, powers of the dark world know that. That's what St. Paul said when he explained that our enemies were not of flesh and blood, but hierarchies of angels. He names angels, which are fallen. So they mess with your car, or with your wife, or there's certain things that come in there, and they usually prevent people from coming. So when I say congratulations, this is great. You guys are here, and it's already a huge step. We're going to be doing the meditation in the presence of our Lord in the Blessed Sacrament, the Word made flesh, who communicates to us, has become an object. It's mind-blowing. Like when we feel like we're objectified, we felt that before. You feel objectified, like you're just treated like an object. In his humility, like you would figure he couldn't get lower, and he wants to be here, and what we see as bread. It's not even like, it's like a common thing. It's not even anything special. It's bread. But we're not objectifying him. We love him. So we're going to do our meditations in his presence. The spiritual exercises, this might be important to jot down. The spiritual exercises, as St. Ignatius says, have as their purpose to overcome oneself, so that can be the first part of the purpose of these spiritual exercises, to overcome oneself, which the Church Fathers say is the hardest enemy. You have the world, the devil, and the flesh, and the flesh, ourselves, is usually the hardest enemy to overcome. He lives with you. You can go into the desert and you can flee from the world, and then you have scary attacks of the devil. The devil kind of seems like he's there, but then yourself, you can never escape from yourself. St. Francis de Sales says, the old man, St. Paul refers to the old man as that self, us that rebel against God. But what we're supposed to be doing is that part of you that doesn't want to get out of bed, that doesn't want to come to these exercises, that doesn't want to be taking notes, that would rather be sleeping, or that always, is inclined to be doing what's easier, not harder. That's the old man. And St. Francis de Sales says that the old man dies, because St. Paul says we have to kill the old man. That's what overcoming yourself is killing the old man. He dies 15 minutes after you do, which is a bit discouraging. What he means is that the old man is not going to die. The old man can be mortified and he can be beaten up, but that part of us, it's always going to be there. This is going to be a constant battle. Sounds discouraging, but I think it's encouraging, because it helps us put ourselves in our position that we are weak, and this is tough, and that's why I need to ask for help. I need someone to save me, because look, I can't do this. So the first part is here, as their purpose is the overcoming of self and the ordering of one's life. Ordering one's life. I'm not talking about like if you have a disorganized house where things are out of place and it's messy. Order your life is putting priorities where they need to be. This is a great examination of conscience right now. What are my priorities? Well, a very easy way to find out what your priorities are or your love. It was beautiful what Father Dominic said in the homily. So simple, the phrase, but so profound and beautiful. Do I love him? Like, you could have a whole weekend wrestling with that question. Because you guys at this stage of your life, you know what love is. I'm not talking about romance, which sometimes plays a part. I'm talking about love. When you don't get a response, or it's not that you don't get a response, you get the opposite. You almost get rejection. But you go back. And you make an act of the will to be with the person. Like, at this stage of the game, you guys know that love, yeah, okay, honeymoon, butterflies, like chemistry. Love is a lot deeper than that. Do I love him? Well, a good example of this, or maybe an exercise, is St. John of the Cross says, usually what occupies our attention is what our heart esteems. It's a very deep phrase. It's not mine, it's St. John of the Cross. I'm just repeating things that deep people have thought already. What occupies my attention is usually what my heart esteems, wants, loves. Well, spend 5 minutes with yourself in silence. What occupies my attention? This is a bit of a trick question because we're constantly attached to things. As Jeremiah says, the heart is wretched. There's nothing more wretched than the human heart because it's like so sticky. It's always clinging to things. When I want to be clinging to God and looking for him, it seems like my heart's going after his creatures more than the Creator. And I get stuck up on the creatures. I was just in Spain for Christmas, and it was like, when I go to Spain, I'd unplug, and I also plug back into our charism and to our spirituality. That's the mother house in the north of Spain, and it's great. I don't have a planner, I don't have the phone, I don't have anything that I'm supposed to be doing. No responsibilities. I mean, there's a lot of usual like manual labor. So this Christmas there was 2 stone walls that we built, and trees that we cut down, loads of pine trees, which is great. And I found myself in prayer in the morning thinking about rocks. You wouldn't believe it. Like, you can give up your country, a future wife and family, your culture, your sports, your basically everything. You can leave that behind and you can be attached to rocks. It's possible because that's what I was doing over Christmas. And you're sitting like there, and I love God. I gave my life to him. Jesus is my intimate friend. I'm a priest. I feel like I'd love to say I could do anything for him. I do. I love Jesus. And there I am, like thinking about like how we're gonna be like completing this wall before we go back to Ireland, and then the trees as well, because there was like the power lines were going in between the trees, and like how we're gonna cut them down and enjoy climbing them and then tying the rope. It's like I can get attached to rocks. Like me personally, I don't know about you guys, what your guys' thing is, but like usually what occupies your attention is what your heart esteems. And we have to be constantly pulling away. This is part of the fight. So don't be discouraged if you're attached, but be aware of it and start detaching. Because the baptized, this is from the Church Fathers, a baptized Christian, the very nature of his baptism requires, I'm gonna say 2 big words, but like don't worry about it. It's apotaxis, which is Greek, and syntaxis. So apotaxis is wrenching, breaking away, and syntaxis is joining, uniting. So it's a constant battle of me breaking away and joining. I'm breaking away from attachments. Like the heart is always going after something and is always clinging to something, and I'm trying to cling to him. It's a dynamic that's in my soul. So when we come into spiritual exercises, this become more aware of this, and I say, Lord, I need the grace to overcome myself. This is the purpose of why I'm here. I'm exercising, to overcome myself and to order my life and put you first. And this is where he comes into his first meditation, which is called the foundation. And this is our meditation for now. I gave you a bit of a preliminary there about the purpose of the exercises, to overcome myself and to order my life so that I can be free from any disordered attachment. Because we're supposed to be using the creatures in so far as they bring us to the Creator. But if the creatures are just bringing us to themselves and we're staying in the created, that's an attachment. It's a disorder. Creatures are good. It's good to build stone walls and cut trees down, to ride horses. Creatures are good in so far as they bring me to my Creator. But if I'm ending in them and I get to the point where it's just occupying my attention because my heart's looking for Him, that's when we have to be careful. So first meditation, the foundation. The human person is created to praise, reverence, and serve God, our Lord. The human person is created to praise, reverence, and serve God, our Lord. By doing so, save his soul. That's the principle and foundation of everything, that the human person is created to praise, reverence, and serve God our Lord, and by doing so, save his soul. I think it's humorous that I find third years that are atheists. They thought, yeah, I'm actually an atheist. Really? Like, yeah. Something came, in secondary school, they became atheists. Like, that's actually interesting that you're an atheist. So, you believe, or your faith is that God doesn't exist. I'm actually very surprised that you came to that conclusion at 12 years old, 13 years old, because when Einstein was asked if he was an atheist, he says he couldn't become an atheist because he didn't have enough faith to be an atheist. You seem to have more faith, being a different level. Einstein, 13 years old, I don't know, because as Einstein said, and I don't like quoting Einstein, I'm not basing my stuff on Einstein, but it's interesting that, it requires more faith to believe that the order and harmony I see in this universe comes from absolute chaos and chance than to believe that there's an intelligent designer behind it. I'm sorry. I don't have that kind of faith. I can't base my life, that's what faith is. I base my life on this, that the harmony and order and structure that I see as an astrophysicist, and not bad, he was Einstein, it's harder for me to believe that comes by chance. Is there a probability? Yeah, there's a probability that a monkey can write the works of Shakespeare. It's probable. It's very, very, it's probable. You can throw millions of letters off the Empire State Building and they can fall in an order to form the Webster English Dictionary. That's probable as well. And I'm not even brushing on the complexity of our universe, of the atom, the amount of force that an atom has. It's more than the gravitational pull of the sun and the planets. And we're talking about one of the smallest particles that you can't even see it. If every human being on the earth were the size of an atom, they would fit on the tip of a pin needle. Every single human being the size of an atom, you would fit them on the tip of a pin needle. And I'm splitting one of these things, and I'm talking about a force and an energy that's more than the gravitational pull, the sun and the planets. What is going on here? So like, you're 13 and you've come to these conclusions, that's amazing. But then I explained to them that they're not atheists, they're agnostics, or they're practical atheists. They live as if God didn't exist. They're just indifferent, or they don't know him. They haven't met him because he's a person. You can meet him, he has a face, and he speaks to you. He's the Logos. The Logos is the order, the direction, the purpose of everything. In him all was created, and nothing exists without him. And he's right in front of me, and he's become like the humility of it all is. And then here I am with my pride and like thinking like, you know, someone offended me or said something to me, you know? Like, who the heck am I to be like offended at what they said to me, like when the Logos, the divine Logos has done this? You guys, what are we doing? What are we doing with our life? Why are we here? Like, what's going on? Like, how much time do I actually spend thinking about him or looking for him or trying to serve him? If my purpose here is to praise, revere, and serve him, that's my purpose. And it's also to save my soul. What am I doing with my time? St. Teresa of Avila, like, once again, she's like, if I were to ask you where you're from, like, what's your name? What are your parents' name? It'd be very awkward if you were unable to answer that question. It'd be embarrassing. The other person would think, you know, you're special. She's like, the same thing happens to us when it comes to our interior life. Can you say who you are, where you're from, who your parents are? Like, on a spiritual level. She says, our ignorance of the interior is astonishing. She says, it's astonishing, it's shocking. And if we were to compare it, like, it would look like that. What's your name? Oof, hold on, give me a second. Oh, sorry. What's your dad's name? Okay. Where do you live? You know, like she's putting it on par with that. Like, we really don't go down in there. We don't know. We don't ask the question. Who am I? Like, what am I doing here? And that's the sole principle of your life. What are you doing? Running around. There's a frenesy going on here. It's a frenesy, but like the problem is it's like immobile, an immobile frenesy. Reminds you of the hamster. The hamster's moving. He's not going anywhere. He's moving really fast. He's running around. He's doing a lot of things. A lot of important things maybe. The planner's full. Like, I'm doing, I got it, yeah, it's taken care of, like I'm going again. Before you know, it's like you're already home, like the day's been over, you've done a million things. Next day, same old. Like, that's an immobile frenesy where you're just frantically running around and we don't stop and like look inside of us and ask us these questions. What am I doing here? Who am I? Why am I here? You guys, we have to enter into that. We have to go in there. Like, this is very, very important. This is the foundation. This is the principle, which is the first. This is where we have to start. What am I doing here? Who am I? Who are you? It's the prayer of St. Augustine. Lord, tell me who I am, and then tell me who you are, so that I may know myself, and I may know you. I mean, Socrates even got this. He had that warning voice, which is an interesting thing, where he would have the warning voice that would warn him when he was going off, and he wouldn't go off, and it cost him his life. It's an interesting character, Socrates. If you want to like grow in a bit of humility, like they did a caricature of him. They say if they were like a comedian was to come in here and do a caricature of all of us, we would laugh at the caricatures of everybody else except our own. Because the caricature, what it does is it makes fun of like some weird thing that we have. We all have weird things, you guys. We're strange. And like, we're the first ones to kind of like have a complex about your nose or your ears. Or like, and he basically exaggerates it. So we're laughing at that one, but we're not laughing at ours. Socrates, he went to this caricature. It was called The Clouds. Aristophanes was the other guy who was like making fun of him. And he went to the theater. And during the whole performance of them just basically roasting him, he stood up. He stood up during the performance. He wanted everybody to look at him to see how true it was. So it's true. as me. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the guy, man. Anyways, look, I'm just saying, like Socrates has got something there to show us. And he didn't know the Logos. He actually says in the Republic, if this ever were to happen, that God would come down and walk amongst men. You guys read this afterwards, this is impressive. Do you know what we would do to him? We'd torture him, mock him, and then we would crucify him. Socrates uses the Greek word crucify. It's a Republic. Plato. That's what we would do to him, because we wouldn't be able to tolerate that. Jordan Peterson's coming to the same conclusion. He's like, look, if this is true, this is terrifying. He's having a big impact on youth, because he's just telling them to make their bed. Like, it's not that big of a deal. He's like, get up and make your bed, and stop being such a... I'm not going to say stuff in front of the Lord, but like, he's saying it, right? Thanks be to God. But he's like, look, if the one who's behind objective reality has become a subject, the one who's behind all of objective reality, the one who created the universe, has become a subject, a person, that's terrifying, because I'd have to owe everything to him, and I'd have to render him homage. I'd have to bow down before him. He's coming around. He's coming around. And we're Catholics. My creation, my existence is to love, revere, and serve him. And going back to the creation, and anything that gets in my way and inhibiting me from doing that, I have to leave it. And if I am able to attain this, which is an indifference means that I'm not being pulled in one direction by anything. Nothing's pulling me away in one direction. Examine your conscience, you guys. What's pulling you away from him? What's keeping you away from learning how to pray and your name, where you come from, and who you are? I think it was St. Catherine of Siena who had a vision of the soul in the state of grace, and she thought she was seeing God. God had to correct her. He said, that's not me, that's the soul that's in the state of grace. It's what's going on in our interior. How come we don't go down there? How come we're being pulled in every direction, but in the one direction we're supposed to be being pulled in? The Logos, Christ, the Word, like that's our direction. He's the way. We're supposed to be with him, walking and like knowing him and serving him. And I'm thinking about a million things but him. What is occupying my mind and pulling my heart? And I have him as like a little like decoration in my life. I'm not an atheist. I'm not going to say he doesn't exist. But like if I were to be examined right now like by some kind of like spiritual judge, would he judge me and say that I'm an agnostic like these secondary school lads? Because given the tools to come and know him and love and serve him, I can't say that I actually personally know him. I know he's there, but I don't know him. Maybe I'm an agnostic, but I'm a Catholic. If they were to judge us, please judge me now. Like, I'd rather be judged now in this examination and these spiritual exercises than on the day when I'm before you face to face, and it's going to be an embarrassing moment when he's going to tell me that I'm going to see all these moments where I was supposed to just wake up and stop and turn to him. Orient my life. The Orient is the east. It's where the sun comes up. Orient, turn towards the east. Order. What are my priorities? This is where it might get a bit painful, because if I'm married, well, you as an individual are created to know, love, and serve God in this life, be happy with him in the next. But you as an individual just became one with another individual. One. You are one. That's marriage. And so now that forms a part of your new vocation. Your kids. What do I go to battle with my kids? I personally would say if we're not going to battle with a smartphone, just forget about it. I just don't see how we don't see that that's the number one battle right now. For me, the thing is so obvious, it irritates me sometimes. I can't stand them. Like, I have two of them actually on my table right now. I hope you weren't judging me, by the way. Probably too. No, we're recording this for people who can't be here, but I can't stand them. I just think, look, they're useful and they help us, I know. We have a YouTube channel, but the amount of damage I'm seeing as a priest in young people's lives, and I'm not even talking about spiritual, like, we can get into spiritual, but I'm talking about human, you guys. Like, they are humanly retarded, like, held back. Human, like, basic human skills. We're not seeing them. They're not capable of reading a paragraph without being distracted because their dopamine is going through the roof. They're hearing little notifications. When they don't have it, they feel like they lost a limb. Like, literally, it's a clinical condition, missing limb syndrome. And they've diagnosed kids with it when they don't have their phone. They're comparing them with, like, 50-year-old psychopaths that were, like, locking up if you're going back years. A lot of the habits and stuff they're seeing in these kids, they're comparing them with that. What are we doing? The same people who invented them don't let their kids have them. It's shocking. But, like, you know what I'm saying? What's going on? I mean, is this just me, or, like, are we missing something here? Like, I need to go to battle over certain things. I mean, my parents went to battle. Like, they wouldn't let us date until we were 18. We thought it was, like, the most ridiculous thing. We waged war. I mean, this is all being recorded, by the way. But I mean, we weren't officially dating, but, like, we were going out, you know. We were trying to officially dating. No, like, you couldn't have a girlfriend officially. You couldn't have a tattoo either. My father was very clear on tattoos, and I don't have one, thanks to my father. He said he would belt sand it off us if we came home with a tattoo. And I really believed him, the way he said it. My dad's great, he's not abusive or anything. I love my dad. But he was clear on a couple of things. He's like, no tattoos. If you do, well, that's what the belt sander's for. It's in the shop. We're gonna belt sand it. Look, sorry, I mean, no. But you pick your battles. Pick your battles with your kids, because, like, look, what are we battling for here? Well, this is part of the examination. Like, why am I here? And, like, well, if I'm married, there's somebody else that's in my life. And that's important. And there's kids as well. This is all, like, bringing them towards our Lord. If I can get my kids to heaven, wow. Man, is he going to wage war that they don't? And have peace in your soul, because if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're doing what you can, he's going to take care of the rest. And you might not be here, but you might not be around to see the fruits, what I'm trying to say, but, like, don't worry. You will not lose them. If there's tears and sacrifice and prayers, you will not lose them. They're not going to be lost. And by the way, there's seeds that you're sowing in the house that also can't be plucked out by the world. It's really powerful. I had some stuff in me that I could never get out or suffocate, that I received in at my house from my parents. Usually there were seeds of example that were backed up by words, but then when words didn't work anymore, the example just spoke volumes, like, and you're there and you're soaking it up, because that's what kids do. Like, they soak up what they see and they hear from their parents. It's just, that's the way it goes. And, you know, you could have such a powerful influence in them that they could be saying what they want in the school, sadly enough, in some of the churches, but it's not going to get into them, because what they heard and they received in a home is mom and dad, and that's the pillar, usually the strongest pillar. And the frustrating thing is that they have to hear the same thing from a different person to change. As in my case, like, my conversion came from a priest who was saying the exact same thing that my parents were telling me for like 18 years. And it was like as if I heard it for the first time. It was kind of frustrating, but look, who cares? We'll take it, right? You just have to hear from someone else sometimes. But the seeds are there. They get in there deep. So keep going, keep fighting, keep planting. That's what we're here for, you guys. And if I do have that indifference, St. Ignatius says, well, for our part, if I have this indifference in my soul, and this is what I want, because I want a free soul, I don't want it attached.